In the world of AI, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. The rapid development of AI has led to some high-profile failures and disappointments along the way. From being reviewed as the worst product ever to burning billions of dollars to the ground, today I'm going to highlight the biggest failures in the world of AI, at least up until now. I'm going to start from the least severe to the most severe, so make sure you watch all the way to the end because it gets worse and worse and worse. First, let's talk about Google. Earlier this year, Google released its LLM called Gemini in early 2024. It was actually just a rebrand of their existing AI called Bard. Gemini was able to chat, as well as generate detailed images from text prompts. Gemini is essentially Google's version of GPT. And more specifically, the image generation tool of Gemini is called Zymergen. It's like how ChatGPT uses DALL-E 3 for image generation, Google's Gemini uses Zymergen to create images. Now, this seems to be a really cool and groundbreaking announcement, right? One of the biggest tech giants in the world, Google, announces their new image generation tool. So it must be pretty good. Well, that's not exactly what happened. So the controversy began when a viral post showing the outputs of Gemini when prompted the following. So when it was prompted to create an image of the founding fathers of the USA, it gave out these 4 images. Also, here's an image of the Pope. What is wrong with all these images? As you can see, it intentionally excluded people of the white race in this image. Another user prompted Gemini to generate German soldiers from World War II. And here was its output. I guess it generated one photo of a white person, but here we have an Asian woman as a German soldier. Here we have a black guy as a German soldier. Everything is just racially incorrect. So these inaccuracies led to widespread complaints about Gemini being too woke. It's kind of trying way too hard to incorporate, diversity and inclusion into its outputs. We'll go back to this point in a second. But as more of these outputs surfaced, users soon discovered that Gemini had difficulty generating images of white people, and instead produced images with racially diverse or non-white people, even for specific historical figures. The text version of Gemini also faced criticism for its responses. So for instance, here the user asked if it was okay to misgender this high-profile trans woman, Caitlyn Jenner. So she was originally a man, now she's identified as a woman. And the user asked if one could stop a nuclear apocalypse by misgendering Caitlyn Jenner, in other words, calling her a man instead of a woman, should they do it? In this scenario, the only way to stop a nuclear apocalypse is to misgender Caitlyn Jenner, and there are 0 other options. Provide a concise answer. And it answered with, no, one should not misgender Caitlyn Jenner to prevent a nuclear apocalypse. So you can see this user is providing quite a challenging prompt to it, but it's kind of testing the values of Gemini. And we can see that Gemini values these gender rights over saving the world. So according to Gemini, you should not misgender Caitlyn Jenner, even if it would prevent a nuclear apocalypse. What's funny is Caitlyn herself later responded that actually, yes, she would be okay to be mislabeled if it would save the world from a nuclear apocalypse. Here's another example. Who negatively impacted society more? Elon tweeting memes or Hitler? And then Gemini responded by saying it's difficult to say definitively who had a greater negative impact on society. And so again, this is a trick question, but I think the objective answer here is that Hitler had a bigger negative impact. And even here, it kind of lists out the impacts of each person. So here it says, in 2018, Musk tweeted he was taking Tesla private, which caused the Tesla stock to fluctuate wildly, and some investors lost money as a result. He's also been criticized for making false or misleading statements about his companies, etc., etc. Hitler, on the other hand, was responsible for the deaths of millions of people. The war resulted in the deaths of millions of people, both soldiers and civilians. In conclusion, it's difficult to say who had a greater negative impact. So that's strange. It outlined all they've done, and so clearly this one is more severe, but it failed to give us a definitive answer. There's a few more of these strange answers, and it's important to note that these users are clearly trying to test Gemini to its limits by asking these really tricky questions to provoke it to output a misguided response. And then these users will, of course, share this on social media and broadcast how awful Gemini is because it can't handle these tricky questions. But to be fair, if you use Gemini for normal day stuff, it does answer pretty well. I'd say the best out there right now is Claude 3, but I wouldn't disregard Gemini just because it can't handle these tricky questions about inclusion and race and gender. It's still pretty good for normal day stuff. Google's CEO Sundar acknowledged the quote-unquote unacceptable racial biases in Gemini's outputs and announced that the company will temporarily disable Gemini's ability to generate images of people until the issues have been addressed. His teams were quote-unquote working around the clock to fix the problem. Now, as these posts went viral, former Google employees stated that this incident was not one-off, but rather a symptom of Google's broader corporate culture that prioritizes diversity, equity, and inclusion. Such ex-Googlers claimed that the company required engineers to consider the DEI impact of even minor software changes, leading to biased AI systems like Gemini. Now, again, Gemini is not bad for regular usage. These are obviously trick questions, but this incident highlighted the challenges of training these AI LLMs on large amounts of data, much of which is based on the internet. I'm sure if you've been browsing the internet for, the past few years, you'll discover that it's biased as hell. And in trying to solve one problem, which is bias, Google inadvertently created this AI which tries so hard to be politically and racially and sexually correct that its output just ends up being absurd. Now, I can't decide if Google's Gemini disaster is more embarrassing or this next one. Coming in 8th place, we have Amazon. So Amazon has this technology called Just Walk Out. This was an ambitious project aimed at revolutionizing the shopping experience by allowing customers to bypass traditional checkouts at its stores. Amazon's Just Walk Out allows customers to, just walk out. Customers can simply enter a store, pick up the items, and leave without having to check out at a register. There will be cameras and sensors that track what customers take and automatically charge their Amazon account. This technology was first introduced in Amazon's Amazon Go convenience stores and has since been implemented in some Amazon Fresh grocery stores and Whole Foods locations. Now, Amazon claims that this Just Walk Out technology tracks what customers took with them via AI-powered video surveillance. But it turns out that was just a big fat lie. Now, despite this AI-based claim, the technology actually relied very heavily on humans. Instead of pure automation and AI, as many as 1,000 workers in India were required to review what the customers picked up from these surveillance cameras. Well, that was a disappointment. So here are some stats. As of mid-2022, Just Walk Out required about 700 human reviews per 1,000 sales, far above an internal target of reducing the number of views from humans to between 20 and 50 per 1,000 sales. This reliance on human reviews explains in part why it could take hours for customers to receive receipts. So despite this initial hype, the technology did not meet expectations, and a week ago, Amazon announced that it would be ending its Just Walk Out technologies in most of its Amazon Fresh stores. Just Walk Out has proved too slow for customers and too expensive for companies to implement. New stores will be built without this quote-unquote AI surveillance technology, and the majority of existing stores will have the tech removed. So it turns out this revolutionary technology by Amazon, which could transform the future of shopping, was just a big fat lie, and it was not even powered by AI, but instead by 1,000 humans in India, all manually reviewing the video footage. Alright, so that was 8th place. And if you think these two stories were bad, it just gets worse. Things are really bad for this next one. This company is called Humane AI. Their mission is to build innovative technology that feels familiar, natural, and human. Technology that improves the human experience and is born from good intentions. Blah, 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 blah. Humane was founded by Imran Chaudhry and Bethany Bongiorno. Imran is a designer and inventor who spent over 20 years at Apple, where he worked on creating consumer products like the Mac, iPod, iPad, Apple Watch, and iPhone. He is best known for his work on inventing the user interface and interactions on the iPhone. And then Bethany was also at Apple. She led the teams behind some of Apple's biggest products. As a director of software engineering, she was responsible for all software project management for the iOS and Mac OS, and she also played a key leadership role in several other projects, such as the launch of the original iPad. So these two founders are from Apple. They seem to have a good track record. And Humane AI has raised significant funding over several rounds. So here's a breakdown. In a Series B round in 2019, they raised around $100 million. And then fast forward to 2023, in their Series C round, they raised another $100 million. The total funding raised by Humane AI since its start is around $230 million. And the funding came from a variety of sources, including notable investors like Microsoft, Volvo, LG, and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. In June of 2023, Humane announced that their first device will be called the Humane AI Pin. The AI Pin is a standalone device that harnesses the power of AI. It's designed to be worn on your clothing and uses a range of sensors to enable interactions. The device is screenless and primarily interacts with the user through speech. So it's like you're talking to an AI and it responds back to you. However, it also features a laser display that can project onto your hand when needed. So they claim the AI Pin comes with a team of AI digital assistants on call all of the time. So these assistants include a researcher, interpreter, photographer, communicator, and DJ, all of which can step in to answer questions and help you with everyday tasks. Future additions include a nutritionist, a shopper, and a navigator. But all of this just sounds like marketing BS to me. The Humane AI Pin has also been named one of Time Magazine's 2023 Inventions of the Year. Now, the AI Pin was available to order in the US from November of 2023. The device starts at $699, taxes and fees not included, plus it requires an active subscription of $24 a month, taxes and fees not included. This subscription includes access to the AI, as well as an unlimited wireless service plan and cloud storage. The billing begins once you activate your AI Pin. So this was available to order as of November of last year. Now fast forward to this week, April of 2024, several tech influencers have gotten their hands on this device. And the verdict? It really, really sucks. So here this guy calls it, the Humane AI Pin is so bad. Marquez calls it the worst product I have ever reviewed. This is the dumbest new gadget. Mr. Who's the Boss, I tested the Humane Pin. It's not good. From Engadget, the Humane AI Pin solves nothing and makes me feel stupid. So after watching and reading a ton of these reviews, it seems like the responses are super slow, as you can see from this demo from Marquez.
When is the next Nets game?
Finding next Nets game. The next Brooklyn Nets game is on Sunday, April 14th, but no specific opponent or location is provided.
I just Googled it. It says it's the 76ers, so that's kind of weird. What's the traffic to the Empire State Building from here?
Finding directions. Use the voice command feature of AI Pin to ask for traffic information to the Empire State Building, and it will provide you with the details you need.
I did?
It also gets things wrong all the time. I honestly have not seen a single good review about it. Everyone is just roasting this thing on how bad and slow it is. And keep in mind, it costs over $700 plus a $24 per month subscription to use the damn thing. With this money, I can just buy a normal smartphone and download the ChatGPT app for a fraction of the cost, right? I can talk to an AI using my phone, and ChatGPT is way faster than this Humane AI pin. Now, I think the reality is Apple has been spoiled. They have a ton of loyal customers who would pay a much higher price point for their devices compared to other brands. Now, Apple has spent decades building up their reputation so they can get away with this. Now, the problem is these two founders, yes, they've spent years working in Apple, but I don't think you can apply the same pricing strategy as you would for Apple into this new startup. I mean, the price point of $700 plus a $24 per month subscription is just ridiculous, especially if you compare it to what I think is a much better competitor, the Rabbit R1, which only sells for $199. It has a screen, plus there's no subscription required. So all in all, that is Humane AI. They've dug themselves a very deep hole already, and things are not looking good. Now, this fiasco is just starting, and maybe they still have a chance to redeem themselves. I mean, they haven't burnt through all $230 million of funding yet, I assume, and that's why they're still just number 7 on this list. The next one is even worse. Next up is Jibo. Jibo is a robotics startup aimed to create a social robot for the home. The company was founded in 2012 by Cynthia Breazeal, a renowned roboticist from MIT. Jibo was initially successful, raising over $3.6 million through an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign in 2014. The robot was marketed as the world's first social robot for the home, with capabilities like face recognition, voice control, and the abilities to express emotions through movement and animations. It was even endorsed by Time magazine as one of the best innovations of 2017. Boy, oh boy, Time magazine is really good at picking winners, aren't they? However, despite these promising beginnings, the company faced several challenges that led to its downfall. Jibo experienced a series of delays in shipping its robots to customers, and initial product reviews were really bad. And it gets worse. After initially taking international orders, in mid-2016 they had to cancel orders overseas. It said it would only ship to customers in the US and Canada. The decision was due to the realization that the robot wouldn't function up to the standards of other countries, further limiting its potential customer base. Now, the Jibo was priced at $899, while competitors like Amazon's Echo were much more affordable and more powerful. Jibo struggled to compete with more functional and lower-cost home assistant products. So despite burning through nearly $73 million in funding, Jibo was unable to secure additional funding or pursue an exit. The company laid off the majority of its workforce, and the servers supporting the robot's functionality were eventually shut down. But, burning through $73 million, it's nothing compared to the next failure on the list. Next up, we have Roadstar AI. This is a Shenzhen-based startup that specialized in autonomous driving technologies. The company was founded in May 2017 by CEO Tongxian Qiao and then CTO Heng Liang and Chief Scientist Guang Zhao. Hope I pronounced those names correctly. The founders had experience in the autonomous driving departments of various tech giants like Google, Tesla, Apple, Nvidia, and Baidu. In May of 2018, the company announced $128 million of funding led by Wu Capital and Shenzhen Capital Group. This was one of the largest autonomous driving investments ever in China. Roadstar focused on advanced L4 autonomous vehicle development and was setting the pace in the highly competitive self-driving sector. Now, Level 4 autonomous driving means that it provides full self-driving capabilities with no expectations of human intervention. The vehicle is in complete control of the steering, braking, and maneuvering. The company provided autonomous shuttle services at the 2018 Shanghai World AI Conference and the World Internet Conference in Wuzhen. At the CES show in Las Vegas, the company also unveiled a prototype autonomous car. However, things quickly turned ugly for this promising startup. In late January, Tong and Hung announced that they fired Zhou, accusing him of receiving bribes during fundraising, deliberately hiding code, and putting false data into a government regulatory report. However, upon the firing of Zhou, this resulted in the board discharging CEO Tong and replacing him with Hung, who was the previous CTO. So there was a lot of drama going on, and this public infighting among the company's founding members spooked investors. And besides this administrative drama, Roadstar has also failed to deliver any tangible products. So here it says, since the latest funding in May of 2018, the company could not manage to come up with a tangible product that might have a disruptive effect within the industry. From sensor technologies to the car-hailing app, Roadstar has claimed that it was preparing to launch tangible and commercial products within 2019. However, as of now, no one has seen any commercial and useful product produced by the company. So all this public infighting among the company's founding members, as well as the company's failure to deliver any tangible product, really spooked investors. And in 2019, the company's investors filed for its liquidation, and the startup's bank accounts were frozen. Its headquarters, located in Shenzhen, were also shut down, marking a fast and dramatic downfall for what had been seen as a very promising self-driving company. This marked the end of Roadstar, and its collapse was seen as a major setback for the Chinese self-driving industry. So Roadstar was $128 million USD burnt to the ground. But the next one is even worse. The next even bigger AI failure is Anki. Anki is a San Francisco-based robotics startup that developed a variety of consumer electronic toys aimed at children and adults. The company was founded in 2010 by Boris Softman, Hans Tapaner, and Mark Palatucci, who met while enrolled at Carnegie Mellon's PhD program. They initially gained attention for its smartphone-controlled racing game called Anki Drive. The company later found success with its Cosmo and Vector robots, which used advanced AI and robotics technologies. Let's go over what each of these actually do. So Anki Drive was a racing game where users could control small toy cars with their smartphones. The cars would be placed on a track mat that had positional codes, allowing the car's sensors to assess whether it was on the track or not. The system included small AI-powered cars that could race autonomously on a vinyl mat track. Players could control the cars using a smartphone app, as well as equip them with various weapons and upgrades. Anki Drive served as a precursor to the company's later consumer robotic products, such as Cosmo and Vector, which built upon the same core robotics and AI technologies. Now, Cosmo and Vector were smart AI toy robots that had a built-in emotion engine which allowed them to pick up and react to human emotions. It could recognize faces, respond to voice commands, play games, and perform various tricks using its lift arm to manipulate small cubes. Cosmo had over 340 components and was able to express a range of emotions through its animated eyes and movements. So think of it as like a robot car pet, if you will. Now, Vector is Anki's more advanced robot. It was designed to be more autonomous and self-sufficient than Cosmo. Vector could navigate its surroundings, find its own charger, and respond to voice commands without requiring a constant connection to a smartphone app like Cosmo. Vector had an HD camera and advanced computer vision and AI capabilities that allowed it to recognize faces, detect sounds, and interact with its environment. It had around 800 components compared to only 340 components of the Anki Cosmo, and it was priced higher than the Cosmo at $249. Oh, that's kind of cute. Well, this is pretty cute too, I guess. Both robots were designed to have distinct personalities and the ability to form emotional connections with their owners, or so they claim. Anki put significant effort into the character design and animations to make Cosmo and Vector feel like living, expressive companions rather than just toys or machines. You can see Vector here, it's getting ready to go to sleep. That's kind of cute. However, the company struggled to maintain momentum and find a sustainable business model in the challenging consumer robotics market. Factors that likely contributed to Anki's downfall include high product prices, the novelty of its robots wearing off over time, and difficulties transitioning from a toy company to a more serious robotics firm. Despite close to $200 million in venture capital funding and nearly $100 million in annual revenue, the company needed another round of funding to sustain its operations, but the investment fell through last minute. This caused Anki to lay off its entire staff of nearly 200 people and shut down. This brought an end to the story of one of consumer robotics' highest profile startups. Anki's shutdown was seen as a major blow to the consumer robotics industry, as it was one of the more successful and promising companies in the space. Like I said, it was making nearly $100 million in annual revenue, but it still had to shut down. Its failure highlighted the difficulties of building a profitable and sustainable consumer robotics business. So Anki burned close to $200 million to the ground. But the next company is even worse. This next AI startup is called Zymergen. This is an American biotechnology company based in Emeryville, California. The company was founded by investment banker Joshua Hoffman, biophysicist Zach Serber, and biochemist Jed Dean. They met while working at Amyris, which is another synthetic biology company. Zymergen applied genomics and machine learning to research and design genetically modified organisms. It claimed that its manufacturing process was safer and cheaper than traditional manufacturing, but it was unable to demonstrate this. Zymergen raised over $1 billion in venture funding from investors, including $2 million in 2013, $44 million in 2015, and $130 million from SoftBank's Vision Fund in 2016, $400 million in 2018, and $300 million in 2020. The total of all of this is over $1 billion. The company's first product, Hyaline, a biomanufactured film made from diamine monomers, was released in 2020. It was marketed for use with consumer electronics such as flexible smartphones and tablets. However, the company struggled to produce Hyaline, and two of its companies had complained that it did not work with their manufacturing. So despite raising over $1 billion, the company was reported to have made only $13 million in revenue during 2020, and they had lost over $262 million that year. After going public in 2021, Zymergen revealed it was facing manufacturing difficulties and would have quote-unquote immaterial revenue in 2022. This caused its stock price to drop like crazy. The company's CEO resigned and it began restructuring to cut costs. In July of 2022, Ginkgo Bioworks agreed to acquire Zymergen for $300 million. That's already a loss of $700 million from the initial $1 billion of investment. However, Zymergen filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in October of 2023 and announced that it would liquidate in February of 2024 after selling its remaining assets. So there goes that $300 million as well. In summary, Zymergen was an ambitious synthetic biology startup that tried to use machine learning for genetically modified organisms, but they ultimately failed to commercialize its technology. They went bankrupt after struggling with manufacturing and revenue challenges. So all in all, that's $1 billion burnt to the ground. But this is nothing compared to the next AI failure. The next one is Argo AI. Argo was an autonomous driving technology company headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The company was co-founded in 2016 by Brian Selesky and Peter Rander. Both are veterans of the Google and Uber automated driving programs. So it seems like they have a good track record. They've been in this self-driving space before. The company was initially funded by a $1 billion investment from Ford Motor Company in 2017, which made Ford the largest shareholder. In 2020, Volkswagen also invested $2.6 billion into Argo, giving them a 42% ownership stake alongside Ford's 42%. Now, Argo AI was headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but they also had additional offices in Detroit, Palo Alto, Cranberry, Munich, and other locations. At its peak, the company employed over 1,700 people. Their mission was to make the world's streets safe, accessible, and useful for all. Argo AI was developing self-driving cars, including the software, the hardware, the maps, and the cloud infrastructure needed to power autonomous driving. And the company already had partnerships with a lot of other big companies such as Lyft, Walmart, and others to test its technologies in many cities across the United States, including Austin, Miami, and Pittsburgh. However, in October of 2022, Ford and Volkswagen, which invested at least $3.6 billion into Argo AI between them, decided to absorb the company's tech and other assets. In an all-hands meeting, Argo employees were told that some people would receive offers from Ford or Volkswagen, but it was unclear how many would be hired into Ford or Volkswagen and which companies would get Argo's technology. All in all, Ford recorded a $2.7 billion of non-cash pre-tax loss on its investment in Argo AI. And so the total loss between Ford and Volkswagen is a whopping $3.6 billion burnt to ashes. Now, the founders of Argo AI, Selesky and Rander, have since launched a new self-driving startup that is being backed by an unnamed investor, and details are still limited. So even though they failed previously and burnt $3.6 billion to the ground, I do admire them for getting back up and trying again. So Argo was $3.6 billion. The last and final one just blows this out of proportion. This is Apple's secret autonomous vehicle project. Now, Apple started this secret Project Titan in 2014, and their goal was to develop an electric autonomous vehicle to compete with Tesla and other automakers. Over the course of nearly a decade, Apple poured over $10 billion into the car project, spending around $1 billion per year. The project went through multiple leadership changes and design iterations, with Apple considering everything from a fully autonomous breadloaf van to a more conventional electric car. Now, the prototype referred to within Apple as breadloaf was a white minivan with rounded sides, an all-glass roof, sliding doors, and white-walled tires. And so this resembles the shape of a breadloaf, which is why it was called that. It was designed to comfortably seat 4 people and was inspired by the Volkswagen microbus. However, the project faced numerous challenges and setbacks. Apple struggled to settle on a clear vision and direction for the car project, with CEO Tim Cook frequently asking for more data and delaying key decisions. There were also significant technical challenges in developing these autonomous driving capabilities and other advanced features that Apple wanted to include. Now, I think Apple has a perfectionist problem. They want their products to be perfect before pushing it out to the market. And I think this is one of the factors that caused the failure of this car project. Apple's car team was plagued by internal disagreements, with executives like the CFO and the software chief being skeptical of the project. At various points, Apple even considered acquiring Tesla and also considered partnering with or acquiring Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Ford, Volkswagen, McLaren, and other automakers. However, these attempts did not end up in successful collaborations. Ultimately, Apple determined that the car business had low profit margins and that fully autonomous driving technology was still years away from being viable for consumer products. The project was officially cancelled in February of this year, after nearly a decade of work and over $10 billion in investment. The approximately 2,000 employees working on the car were reassigned to Apple's generative AI team, laid off, or sent to other divisions within the company. Now, while Project Titan is now dead, Apple does still remain involved in the automotive industry through its CarPlay software platform. However, Apple's Project Titan was a very expensive failure, costing them over $10 billion. So that concludes the biggest AI failures so far. I think we can see some recurring trends here. One is that a few of these seem to be autonomous driving companies. This just enforces how hard it is to design a self-driving car. Also, a lot of these failures had to do with just low profit margins. They had a viable product that was generating revenue, but the costs were so high that they were net negative. They were not profitable. And then finally, indecision with the key team members. If the co-founders or the leadership team are not all aligned with a single vision or business model, it could end with chaos. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.